Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. Stick around to hear my winter book haul. Alright guys, so it's been a while since I posted a book haul. I think the last book haul was all the way back in September for my birthday. So I'm really excited to talk about these books. Most of these books were Christmas gifts. There are a few that I actually purchased for myself because Barnes & Noble was doing their 50% off hardback sale, and I definitely took advantage of that. So most of these books are YA fantasy or fantasy romance. There are a few indie romances in here that I'm super excited to share with you guys. And yeah, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram. It is linked down in the description below. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about these books. Alright guys, so like all my videos, I'm going to sort this by genre, so if you're looking for a specific book or a specific genre, you can look in the timestamps down below. Now, these first two books are actually going to be out of order because they are Fairy Loot editions. So the first one is The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. I was so excited when I found out Fairy Loot was doing a special edition because I have the original book, or the first book in this series, The Prison Healer, in Fairy Loot Special Edition, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. So, like I said, this is the second book in that series. The Prison Healer is following Kiva, who is a girl that is sent to Zalendal, which is this horrible prison, and the entire time she's there, she's getting messages from her family saying, "Don't worry, we're coming, just be patient." Now, one day, the Rebel Queen is sent to Zalendal prison, and Kiva is in charge of taking care of her. And when she looks in the Rebel Queen's pocket, she sees a note from her family that says, "Keep her alive, we're coming for you." Now, this is very unfortunate because the Rebel Queen was just sentenced to do these elemental trials that no one has ever survived. So Kiva takes it upon herself to do these trials in place of the Rebel Queen, and it goes from there. I loved the first book. I cannot wait to jump into the second book. I think it's going to be a great time. I've already talked about this book a lot on my channel, but I will definitely be picking this up at some point in January. All right, and next up is another Fairy Loot book. So this is December's Fairy Loot pick, and that is Year of the Reaper, and this is by Mika Lucier, and this sounds so cool. Now, I know absolutely nothing about this book because I typically spoil myself, and I look at Eater of Stories Instagram, and she normally guesses what the Fairy Loot book is going to be. And she didn't guess this, and she's almost always right. So I have not looked into this at all, but I read the back and it sounds really cool. It's following this young boy who I think might have been king, and then he is captured and the entire land is plagued by this disease. They don't realize the king is actually alive in this prison cell, and now the king is able to, I think, leave somehow, and he teams up with this scholar and they have to figure stuff out. That's a very bland summary, but it sounds really cool. I'm very interested. I can't believe I've never heard of this book before, but it should be a really good time, and I'm excited to add it to either my January or my February TBR. All right, the next 6 books are YA fantasy. So first up is another Fairy Loot book, and that is The Coldest Touch by Isabel Sterling. I love Fairy Loot mostly just for this reason. I had never heard of this book, but the back sounds awesome. So it is following a girl who is able to have these premonitions. When she touches someone, she sees their death. Now, at one point, she touches her brother, she sees how he's gonna die, and she's not able to prevent his death. So she's very melancholy about all of this. Then she ends up teaming up with this vampire who's trying to gain her loyalty, and she sees the death of her teacher, her favorite teacher, and she teams up with the vampire to try to stop that from happening. It just sounds really fun. I can't wait to read this. I'm probably gonna add this to my February or March TBR just because my January one is getting very, very long, but definitely excited to jump into this, and it seems like a very fun read. All right, and next up is a YA thriller, so The Ravens, and this is by Kass Morgan and Danielle Paige. And all I know about this is it's sorority and witches, and it gave me such American Horror Story Coven vibes. So very pumped to jump into this. I really wish I read this in October during spooky season. I know Olivia Reads a Latte and Gabby Reads normally do a summer ween, so I'll probably wait to read it then. But this was one of the books I got during the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale, and I just couldn't pass it up. All right, and next up is another book I got from the Barnes & Noble hardback sale. So a Spindle, Splintered, and this is by Alix E. Harrow, and it is described as a vivid, subversive, and feminist reimagining of Sleeping Beauty, and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Now, I am so intrigued because this is only 117 pages. I believe it is a standalone, and it is just getting amazing reviews. A lot of people really love this. They just say it's lyrical writing, and it's beautiful storytelling. So I'm very excited to check this one out. All right, this next book I'm going to touch on super briefly because I already talked about it ad nauseum on my channel, and that is The Righteous by Renee Ahdeih. I wanted to read this month. I did not get around to it, and I didn't own a hard copy. My husband was super nice and got me this for Christmas, and I'm very excited to jump into it. For those of you who don't know, this is the third book in the beautiful quartet, I believe is what it's called, and it's a paranormal fantasy romance that I love. It's set in New Orleans, and it's just such a great story. It really has everything. You have vampires, you have werewolves, you have this slow bird romance. It's great. And I love the setting of New Orleans. It's just described beautifully. So definitely check the series out if you haven't. And the next YA fantasy was another gift from my husband, and that is Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the second book, the first book being These Violent Delights. I believe it's a duology. And this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling that is set in Shanghai. And I need to read it. I said I was going to start it back in December. I never got around to it. And I just think it's going to be such an engaging and immersive read. It's getting such good reviews. Everyone seems to love it. And it seems like something I would love. So I will hopefully be reading at least the first book in January, if not February. But I really need to get on it because I just heard such amazing things about this duology. And last up for YA Fantasy, we have Gilded by Marissa Meyer. So this is another one that I got during the Barnes & Noble sale, and the reason I was so hesitant to pick this up, this book has average reviews on Goodreads, and a few people that I've talked to weren't a huge fan of it. Now, I could be completely off base here. I believe this is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, possibly, but what hooked me at the bookstore was this description: a mashup of fairy tales and science fiction, a cross between Cinderella, the Terminator, and Star Wars. So I was interested. And this is a pretty popular novel, and I want to do a full video just like on retellings. So it seemed interesting. So I'm going to pick this up at some point in the winter. I'm not really sure when. It's not super high on my list, but I think this should be an interesting time. And after that summary, I'm just so curious. All right, so moving into adult fantasy, I have 3 books. So the first one was a present, and that is Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. So this was a gift from my husband because we watched the Amazon show Wheel of Time and were absolutely obsessed. Honestly, I wasn't into it until I think it's like the 3rd or 4th episode, and then I was just so hooked. So I just really enjoyed that show, and my husband did too. And then one day I heard him in the shower and he was listening to the audiobook, and he is not a reader. So I got really excited. We're listening to the audiobook together. It is very long. It's like a 32-hour audiobook. I think I have about 11 hours left to go. And then I found out my cousin is also reading it. So we're all gonna read it together. It's gonna be a really fun time, and I'm really excited about it. Now, this is a very complex world. It is 14 books. I don't know if they are all this chunky, but it is gonna take a while. So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna read one book a month, if not 2 months. I think it's gonna take me a very long time to get through the series, but I'm excited that my husband is reading and that my cousin's reading it, and we have something to share and talk about. So very excited about this one. And next up is another one that I was supposed to read in December, but I didn't have a physical copy, and now I do. And that is The Bone Shard Emperor. This is the second book after The Bone Shard Daughter, which is a very dark adult fantasy, multi-perspective story that talks about bone shard magic. And it's pretty much putting life into inanimate objects by people's bone shards and just imbuing life with these bone shards. And it's really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to read this one. Another book, supposed to read in December, didn't read it. Hopefully we'll read it in January. I'm just failing miserably at reading. I was in quite a reading slump. I'm starting to get out of it now. I'll talk about that in my December wrap up. But anyway, super excited to start this, and hopefully I will read this in January. All right, and this last adult fantasy book, I actually DNF'd, but the person who got it for me didn't realize that. And honestly, I think I will give this book another try. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And that is The Wolf and the Woodsman, and this is by Ava Reid. So this book in hardback is absolutely stunning, but it's following a pagan girl who's given to these, I forget what they're called, the Woodsman, obviously. The Woodsman as a blood sacrifice, and then we find out that the person taking her actually isn't just a woodsman, but I think he's a prince. But I started this, I only got a few chapters in just because it was a little bit more gory, I think, than I was anticipating. The woodsmen use their power by like cutting off body parts and limbs, and it's described in a lot of detail. And I just wasn't expecting that. But I will definitely give this another shot. And like I said, this hardback is just absolutely stunning. So I am excited to jump back into this. All right, and last up is romance and fantasy romance. And honestly, these are the books I am most excited about, especially this first one. So this is the book I asked for Christmas. I really could not wait to read this, and that is Hooked. and this is by Emily Mcintire. And I believe this is like smutty Peter Pan Hook retelling or reimagining, where Hook, I think, might get Wendy, and it just sounds like so much fun. A lot of people on Book Talk are talking about it and just saying it's great. I know the audio version, I think, comes out at the end of January, so I'm debating. I already read a few pages. I started this. I might wait for the audio version and listen to it that way, but I'm so excited about this one, guys. I cannot wait to read it. I just think it's gonna be so good. And I think it actually might be a duology. I saw there's another book, Scarred, that I think is releasing later this month or later in January. And it should be really fun. So super excited about this. I will let you guys know. I will definitely read it in January. It will be part of my January wrap up. I just don't know if I'm gonna read it physically or listen to it on audio. And next up, we have A Promise of Fire, and this is by Amanda Bouchet. So I believe this is part of a series. It's the first in a series, a fantasy romance series that apparently is very, very good. I was reading some of the reviews on Amazon, and there were a few negative reviews, mostly because they didn't realize that this was a little bit spicier than most fantasy romance. But apparently it's following this girl who has some power that she's able to like detect the truth from lies, and then this king or someone who's trying to become king, I think, kidnaps her, and it goes from there. It kind of reminded me a little bit of a book, Phoenix Unbound, a book that I didn't really love, but this sounds really good. And like I said, it's part of a series. I'm really in the mood just to get lost in a new fantasy romance series. A lot of you have given me great recommendations, so I will definitely be checking those out, but this just seemed like a really good time, and I'm excited to try it. And next up is another book I got from the Barnes & Noble hardback sale, and that is Grace and Glory by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the third book in the Hardbringer series. So I read the first book, Storm and Fury. I also read the companion series, or the first series, it starts with White Hot Kiss, and all of those. Really enjoyed it. Love Roth. Amazing character. So I was excited to read this new series. I wasn't a huge Zane fan, but I thought it would be fun. And I read Storm and Fury. I have not read Rage and Ruin, and obviously I have not read Grace and Glory. So I'm definitely going to jump into this. I wanted to read all of Jennifer L. Armentrout's backlist, and it needs to happen. And I know I'm gonna enjoy this. I literally love every single book this woman writes, so it's gonna be great. I just have to find time to get to it, but it's definitely high on my priority list. All right, and next up is The Sweetest Oblivion, and this is by Danielle. This is a mafia romance that has been getting a lot of hype on TikTok. I think Jess from Peace Love Books talked about this, and I typically just add to list anytime I see her talk about a book, and this sounds really good. Like I said, a lot of people are loving it right now, and I believe it's about a girl who's in the mafia, and she is in an arranged marriage to this really high up other guy in the mafia, and they hate each other. I think it's Hate to Love, but it sounds really cool, and I'm really into mafia romance right now after I finished the Brutal Birthright series, so I hope this lives up to that, but I will let you guys know in my January wrap-up. All right, and this last book was an impulse buy, and that's She's With Me by Jessica Cunsolo. So this is a bully romance, and I think when I read the summary, it just gave me Flock vibes, and I just want a book to make me feel the way that Flock did, because that series just broke me, and I need something like that. But apparently this is like a real alpha guy, and I think he's very protective of her once they get together, and it just sounded very interesting, so I figured this would just be a fun, easy read. It's a little out of my comfort zone. I don't typically read a lot of like contemporary romance or non-fantasy romance, but this seemed like fun, so I figured I would give it a shot. Alright guys, those are all the books in my winter book haul. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books. Which one is your favorite? I need to know which ones I have to prioritize. And I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.